the Eurozone.
That's right, Claire. Economic growth across the Eurozone ground to a halt in the second quarter of this year after 12 months of weak expansion. The European Commission said that gross domestic product across the 18-member currency bloc was flat between April and June. That's compared with growth of about 0.2% at the beginning of the year. Inflation across the Eurozone also fell to 0.4%. That's the lowest rate in 4.5 years. Now, it's led to analysts and economists increasing their calls for action by the European Central Bank. Many want the ECB to follow the lead of the U.S. Federal Reserve and start a program of quantitative easing or large-scale buying of bonds to add liquidity to the financial system and boost momentum. They're pointing, for example, to the U.S. economy, which also struggled to get out of recession, but which recorded a surprising growth rate of 4% for the second quarter. Now, some of the Eurozone's smaller economies did post some growth. Both Spain and Portugal grew at a pace of 0.6%, the Netherlands at 0.5%. But it wasn't enough to offset disappointing performances from the bloc's largest economies, with Germany and Italy slipping back into contraction and France holding at zero. Luke Brown takes a look at the Eurozone's so-called engines of growth and why they've stuttered to a halt.
Flatlining in France. For the second straight quarter, the French economy stuck at 0% growth. Disappointing results for the socialist government.
The reality is not what was forecast. It's a lot worse. So I'm revising the forecasts and all of the budgetary elements linked to growth.
The French state forced then to plan for growth of 0.5% this year, half of what was expected. Another consequence of France's stagnant economy, Paris missing its EU objective to cut deficit to 3.8% of GDP. The bad data also coming from the other side of the Rhine, in Germany. Europe's most powerful economy stuttering, shrinking 0.2% in the second quarter. Germany's contraction in part sparked by uncertainty over the conflict in Ukraine. Many analysts, though, judge Germany's underlying economy to be strong, with growth forecast at 1.7% for the year, leaving it healthier than France.
Failing to respect its deficit engagements could put France in a delicate position towards Germany, which has fulfilled its promises and already made its adjustments when it comes to public deficits and even unemployment, as they approach full employment.
Across Europe, the situation is uneven. Progress in Spain as well as Eastern Europe wiped out by the results in France and Germany. That leaves the Eurozone also with growth stuck at 0%. After 6 years of crisis, the economic hangover in the EU continues to undermine the recovery.
Now, the European markets proved surprisingly resistant to that disappointing data. Shares dipped early in the session, but rebounded on signs of a possible easing of tensions in Ukraine. London's FTSE led the way, closing up about 0.4%. The DAX and CAC 40 with more modest gains, but still ending the day in the green. Wall Street is following that positive trend now, despite the Labor Department saying that more Americans applied for unemployment benefits last week. Those applications still remain near levels last seen before the financial crisis and recession. Turning to some of the day's other business headlines now. Berlin has banned the ride-sharing service Uber and threatened the firm with a €25,000 fine for non-compliance. Authorities cited safety concerns, saying they couldn't allow passengers to risk riding in cars that hadn't been properly vetted. The San Francisco-based company has faced growing opposition around the world, mostly from taxi drivers who say the mobile app threatens their business. Germany's ThyssenKrupp has lifted its outlook and hopes to turn a net profit for the first time in 3 years, despite a dismal economy at home. The industrial and steel giant has been trying to turn itself around with a program of cost-cutting and reducing losses at its Steel Americas unit. And China Mobile, the world's biggest phone carrier by number of subscribers, said its profits fell 8.5% in the first half of the year and is looking for acquisitions that could boost its business. China Mobile received the country's first license for 4G service last year and has been investing heavily to build what it says will be the world's largest 4G network. And finally, if you're someone who's addicted to your mobile phone, you've probably spent some time charging it at an airport. Now, Samsung is trying to take advantage of a perceived weakness in its greatest rival, the Apple iPhone, which many users complain has limited battery life. Samsung is placing advertisements for its own long-life battery phones near power outlets in New York and Chicago with the tagline, "The power to be anywhere but here." that is, squatting next to your charger. It's part of a broader ad campaign targeting wall huggers, as Samsung calls iPhone users who have to recharge a lot, trying to increase its share of that lucrative smartphone market. That's it for this business bulletin. Do stay tuned to France 24.